Cynthia Butler, chair of the Religious Studies Department at the University of Pennsylvania and author of White Evangelical Racism, The Politics of Morality in America, and former RNC chair Michael Steele, who is an MSNBC political analyst. Thank you both for being here. Anthea, I do want to start with you, because I went into a very deep wormhole about the history of enslaved women and abortion over the weekend. And the reality is it was an act of resistance, and it was also an act of desperation for a lot of women who would take roots, things that were passed down to them, their knowledge from from the continent, from Africa, that their mothers and foremothers knew about, certain herbs you could take to abort. And they did it because slavery was worse than death. And I know that the anti-education Republicans would like to sort of portray slavery as this benign institution that wasn't so bad. The people would rather die, would rather have their children die, and would abort on their own to stop creating more product, more available domestic supply of children. What do you make of this fixation that Samuel Alito has with that era? But in his mind, that 19th century era was the good old days.
Well, for Samuel Alito, I'm pretty sure that he would like to be able to sell babies again if he possibly could. But let's take it back for a minute and talk about the 19th century, because I think this is really important to part of what's going on. This idea about family and the way that family gets constructed for evangelicals really starts in the 19th century post-Reconstruction period, where the deification of white women and the protection of white women comes out of a fear of rape by Black men. And we know that this is a lie. But on the other hand, I think what's important here is to say two things. Number one, Black women were never afforded these kinds of protections because they were always in peril and their children were always in peril. And their children could be sold from them at any particular time. So it's no surprise that they would want to have their children not grow up in slavery and take their own lives instead of letting their children be sold by a slave master. That's number one. But let me put a finer point on it, because you showed a picture of a plantation. I'm not sure that everybody knows where that plantation is. It's called Oak Alley in Louisiana. When I visited that plantation, the reason why I recognize this picture is because it's a very arresting one. The oaks go all the way up to the plantation. You get a list of the slaves on the back porch of that plantation, and many of those slaves were mulattoes. How did they get there? It was because of rape by the white slave masters. So I think that this whole thing that Alito is alluding to in this document is about two things. Number one, wanting to make sure that the white personhood of babies is preserved. That's number one, and that they will be protected. And number two, that there are going to be enough children so that if you want to cross-racially adopt, you can adopt. And that doesn't matter if somebody has a baby and you're not able to get an abortion.
And listen, Michael Steele, my friend, here's the challenge. If you go back and you read, the Old Testament of the Bible, or which is the same as, reading the Jewish Bible, the Torah, these traditions, all the Abrahamic traditions, they all share books. They share Abrahamic storylines and characters and et cetera. The idea of a handmaid is in there. So, when Margaret Atwood wrote this book, she didn't take it out of whole cloth. She took it from old biblical stories. And the idea that, the woman who was barren, this was an agrarian society, 1600 to 900 BC, where being, quote unquote, barren, they always ascribed it to the woman. They never ascribed it to the man until very recently, was horrible. It was sort of a curse from God. And so you would take your handmaid, your servant, in those cases, and then they would have the baby. This is not a consensual situation. This is a servant. I feel like trying to ground American law in that kind of not even New Testament Christianity, but Old Testament Christianity, that is a frightening start. And it doesn't end with just abortion. You now have Mississippi, Tate Reeves, the governor there on State of the Union, sort of, we may be on trying to ban Plan B and IUDs. That may be next, because a lot of these same evangelicals believe those things are abortifacients. Marsha Blackburn opposing the Griswold decision. That's the one about contraception. So they're saying that's also wrongly decided. You have this guy in Arizona, Blake Masters, Tucson-based venture capitalist. He's Peter Thiel's guy. He says, we want to go further. We want to overturn Griswold. That's the plan. That's the contraception one. Mitch McConnell saying, national ban on abortion, entirely possible. This is the definition, Michael, of a slippery slope, is it not?
It is on a number of levels. And to your first point, it is much more difficult to reconcile this emerging theocracy within this, conservative evangelical / political space against the New Testament story, against a New Testament background, because it doesn't align. The New Testament narrative is very different, where the Christ embraced everyone. So the prostitute, the sinner, the tax collector was a representation of all those great sins that were condemned in the Old Testament. Christ talked about the fixation of the rule and the order to the extent that it ignored the person. And that's exactly what we see now emerging in this space. And as someone who is pro-life, I've always had a problem with the ignoring of the human person part of this.
Yeah.
And this idea that it's a zero-sum situation, particularly in the draconian laws that you're seeing now, that say we won't even acknowledge we want to do away with the child conceived in we won't allow that to happen in rape or incest. And so there is this sense that the party that's now trying to write this new narrative is doing so, and this basis is going to be tried to be put in this sort of Old Testament space to make those folks who probably would have some problem otherwise feel better about where this is going, because it's aligning with their Christian narrative. And there are a number of great pieces out right now that have been written by some Christian philosophers and doctors of evangelicalism, David French for one, that are beginning to peel back that a little bit more, to expose it and talk more honestly about what's really going on here.
You know, it's interesting, and I know my brother, you went to seminary, we all grew up in the church. I think all three of us that are on this panel right now, we all grew up in the church. I used to teach Sunday school when I was in high school. And so, we're not supposed to talk religion, in politics. I know that's usually quite rude, but I think we have to do it now, because you have to understand this is not Book of Matthew Christianity. I'm going to bring you back in, Mike, but I want to bring you in, Anthea, because what's missing here is the Book of Matthew Christianity, the Christianity that says, blessed are the immigrant, that we're going to care for the immigrant. Where's the Christianity that says children deserve to have food and clothes and they deserve to have school lunch? School kids are being called greedy if they're having school lunch. Where is the belief children should have health care? None of that is there. If you force a woman and say you must give your rapist's baby life, but we're going to do nothing for you to make sure that life survives, that you survive, that's not the Christianity I think any of us, whether you're anti-abortion or you believe abortion is a woman's choice, nobody is supposed to recognize that.